Welcome, everybody, and thank you for attending this session and reaching out to Catholic audiences. First, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. This session is 40 minutes long and will consist of 3 presentations, roughly 10 minutes each, and followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. If you have a question, please type it into chat to the attention of Ask Me Chris. Chris is our super Zoom helper and is going to collate questions and ask them during our Q&A. And please don't wait to type in your questions until the Q&A session. As you think of them, just go ahead and type them in as we're giving the presentations. Let's get started. So this basically is the 3 main points, or the 3 main are the presentations themselves. I'm going to be talking about Catholic presentation strategies. Then Juan is going to talk about outreach to Catholic Latinos. And then Sr Ricca Dimalibot will talk about the religious community advocacy. This is a little bit of a look into the future of what's on the horizon to follow up the Laudato Si. So, Catholic presentation strategies. First, my experience. I joined CCL in 2016, and one of the first things my group leader challenged me to do, because he knew I was Catholic, he handed me a copy of the Laudato Si, believe it or not. And after reading that, that's what inspired me to do outreach or presentations like I'm doing now. I've given roughly 30 presentations, and I'd say half to Catholic audiences, which would be parishes. University of St. Thomas, I've been there a couple of times, the Houston Seminary, Creation Care Team, and things like that. The other half are other faith groups: Unitarians, Episcopal, Christian men's group, a youth group, and I've also presented to secular groups, universities, adult learning classes, and even a Muslim engineering society, which is actually really fascinating. So my goal when I'm making a presentation, the goal basically is to make a personal connection. And I have what I kind of call my 4 pillars, and one's my faith, and that's basically that every person born today and baptized today is going to be impacted by climate change. Full stop. It's a truth. Work experience. I was very fortunate in my experience to have worked in the Arctic, and I've seen a lot of change since the 1980s when I first went there. I've got a nature connection in the fact that I'm a scuba diver, and there's changes going on in the ocean. And then future generations, perhaps that's what keeps me going. That's why I'm in this, doing what I'm doing, is for my grandkids. So the basic important message, I think, is know your audience. And I'm talking specifically about a conservative example, because that's mostly what I see or interact with in Houston. And just one of the things is Pope Francis is not universally admired, which kind of shocked me when I first started giving presentations. There's like political divisions. There's even church divisions kind of on a political basis. So what do you do then? Well, then you emphasize the church's long history of concern for environment and moral implications. And the church does have a very rich history in environment and moral implications of environment concerns and climate concerns. And when you do reach out to other faiths, emphasize the connection to Pope Francis's message and the tie-in of the Pope's position on carbon pricing, which he actually has spoken about it. And the surprising thing is that all faiths are pretty much saying the same thing. And then business community support. Typically conservatives, one of the things that they're very attuned to and very worried about is the impact on businesses and jobs and so forth. Well, lo and behold, the Chamber of Commerce has come out in favor of carbon pricing. The Business Roundtable has as well. Even API, this is a big development happened within the last couple of months. The API has come out, they represent a very large portion of the oil and gas industry. And then locally here, one of the biggest employers within our district is actually ExxonMobil and many other oil companies. But ExxonMobil's come out clearly for a carbon price. So here's an example. Knowing that if perhaps Pope Francis is not the most popular, certainly St. JP2 is a champion, but he's also been very vocal about this issue. And this goes back to 1990. It's one of the slides I use. The greenhouse effect, climate change has now reached crisis proportions as a consequence of industrial growth, massive urban concentration and vastly increased energy needs, industrial waste, the burning of fossil fuels, et cetera, is harming the atmosphere and our environment. And then the important thing that I think most important is I wish to repeat the ecological crisis is a moral issue. So it's not just Pope Francis. It goes way back. It actually goes back to the 1960s with the Pope back then. So then there's also other faiths. And when I presented to the Islamic group of engineers, I was surprised because I'll go into the internet and research so I can also not just talk about my faith, but I can find out what their faith is saying. There was a declaration, like the world's Islamic, many of the Islamic denominations met in Istanbul in 2016 and issued this document. And what they said was really amazing. God, Allah, created the universe, and human beings were created to work for the greatest good for all species and generations. Also said, fossil fuels from which we have derived so much benefit are now destroying conditions that made life possible. And finally, the ability of the planet's ecosystems to adapt for future generations can no longer be taken for granted. So if I didn't show you this, you probably think this came directly out of Laudato Si. And it just shows you that even Muslims have the same opinions and same beliefs and same concerns as our Pope. And then this is something that's not known by many people. It wasn't really publicized very well. There was a Vatican Energy Summit back in 2018 and 2019, 2 years straight. They were going to do it in 2020, but then the pandemic happened. But the Pope invited about 40 companies attended, and these are some of the notable attendees. Notice the international oil companies, large investment companies, there's universities, and there were also NGOs that attended this meeting. And you had to be a CEO to attend this. You couldn't send an underling. So CEOs spent, I think, 2.5 days with the Pope each year, which is really significant. And what was his message to them? He said, climate change threatens the very future of the human family. The poor will suffer the worst impacts. Our children and grandchildren should not have to pay the cost of our generation's irresponsibility. And carbon pricing is essential if humanity is to use the resources of creation wisely. And finally, carbon pricing, then you can tie to our favored bill, HR 273, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So one of the things that's nice is that when I started, I don't think this group existed within CCL, but they now have help for new presenters. They have a presenters and schedulers action team, and there's a wealth of information that's available on the CCL community website. They even have office hours, so you can connect by Zoom for presenters on the first Thursday of the month. Basically call in and just talk to other people or talk to someone about your what issues you're facing. And then really final words of advice is regarding giving presentations. Your message really must fit your persona or your audience will dismiss you. You don't want to come across as being a scientific expert because very few people are. Speak from the heart. You don't have to be an expert about everything. It's okay to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you later. Q&A is usually the best part of a presentation, but then you're not going to be able to answer all questions, and that's fine. And scheduling, and this is also, it's always a challenge. Don't get discouraged. It just takes time. And it can take quite a bit of time, and then the log jam will break, and you'll get things lined up. But it does take time to get an audience. So this, and I'll just leave with this message, and this is what perhaps the most important thing that I present. I have 3 beautiful daughters, and they've given me 5 beautiful grandchildren. And they then hopefully will have their own children, my great-grandchildren. So, you know, it's all about the future generations to me. And I frankly, there's times that, you know, you get a little frustrated. This is what keeps me going. The other thing is that when you have a captive audience like I have right now, it gives you an opportunity to show more pictures of your grandchildren, whether you like it or not. So anyway, that's my message, and I'm going to pass it on to Juan now. And let me just give you a little bit of background about Juan. And by the way, as you're listening to these presentations, do put your questions into the chat, Ask Me Chris. So Juan's been part of CCL since 2019, and he's New York City's 9th District Liaison for Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. And he's also a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Team for CCL's Northwest and Appalachian regions. And he's, in addition to his CCL duties, Juan studied in a New York Conservatory of Dramatic Arts in Film and Television. So, and he's a talented bilingual friend of mine. So Juan, take it away.
Thank you, Roger, so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here today with us. And I'm very much looking forward to speaking with all of you today about CCL and our efforts in outreach to Catholic Latinos. And yes, as Roger mentioned, I am a liaison, as well as I did study acting on the side, but that's for another day to discuss more. So first, I want to start with our introduction that we have in our group for the Latinx Catholic outreach team that we've done, where we do focus on Catholic Latinos, and where our team is the outgrowth of CCL's Catholic Action Team. And we started we're a little over a year now, or old now. So last month we celebrated our first year birthday. And our group consists of about 20 members, 2 presenters, myself included, and another presenter of mine named Valentina, who we're very much appreciative to have her as well. And we also have an intern as well. And our background for the reason our group is informed is we see that the United States Latino population, it is predominantly Catholic, and many of them show support or are aware of climate change. And statistically, 77% of our Latino United States Catholics, they do understand the Earth's warming is caused by human activity ever since the Industrial Revolution. And Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si, it is a great springboard for us for Catholic engagement and action, where, as Roger mentioned, it does discuss the support for getting everybody involved in reaching the climate solution. We need people from all different backgrounds. And of course, doing this, we encourage, our ultimate goal is to grow CCL's Latino Hispanic membership, because we feel that it's important to have CCL's Latino membership grow and to have a very good foundation and good, strong voice for future climate action. And our efforts have gone really well so far. We have grown a community. We have reached with several different groups. So in the next slide right here, this is a chart of our growing community within CCL that we've done so far. We're all working together. We're in contact with the Latinos Action Team, as well as the Catholic Action Team, our springboard, and the Conservative Caucus Action Team, as well as Conservative Latino Outreach. These are all of our Spanish language resources that we have. And we do aim to grow this community, grow our groups as well, so we can continue our efforts with Catholic outreach. And also, we have also done a good amount of presentations so far in our history now, and our key objective that we aim from the presentations that we've done so far is our objectives, that our biggest feedbacks that we have received so far is to leave every presentation with a key takeaway and an inspiration to take further action. So some example initiatives that we have integrated now into our presentations is we encourage all of our Catholic Latinos or all of our audiences to read Laudato Si, or they can read one of our group's founders, Steve Coleman, his booklet on the Catholic response to global warming. There's an English and Spanish version available, so we encourage everybody to go out and read these as a great way to continue to learn more about climate change, read more, learn more about Laudato Si, and a great first step to taking climate action. And we also encourage urgency in all of our presentations. So we want to address our audience that this is something that we want to, not to scare people. We don't create the urgency to instill fear into everybody, but we do it so that we know that this is something that we don't have a huge amount of time to get started on. So, and we also want to discuss the benefits of how our solution ties in with environmental justice that I'll discuss in a later slide. So our presentations that we have done so far that have given us all these great feedbacks are, these presentations have all been bilingual. They've all been in Spanish and English. So the Rochester Area Interfaith Climate Action, we've done a presentation with the Luther College, as well as the Tertulia Group in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, and the Catholic Multicultural Center, as well as we've also had a CCU University presentation back in December of last year. And we do have an upcoming presentation as well. We have with Dana Harper next month our Coffee and Conversation, where I will be with Valentina and we'll be discussing more about CCL solution and how it ties in with Laudato Si. And this is also, we do have a link to the blog. We have written a blog as to connecting with Catholics in Spanish. We have a Spanish and English version available as well. And these are some of our introductory videos that we have. Both me and Valentina have our own introductory videos that you feel free to watch. This is public info. And then the other video is a snippet of the CCU presentation that we did back in December that shows our portion. However, unfortunately, due to time, we cannot show all of these videos. So yeah, these are all of our videos that we have. And we have more coming up in the future as well. And some of our future outreach activities that we are doing with our presentations is we want to promote more communication with other CCL groups, as I mentioned before. We want to continue growing the Latino Action Team, and in the future, Latino Conservatives, as well as we want to continue improving our business climate leadership for Hispanic businesses relationships, because we are looking to connecting with as many Hispanic businesses, small or large, as we can. We want to better those as well. And we want to schedule more presentations to both Catholic and secular groups, so parishes, universities, Newman centers, dioceses, and a lot more. And we also want to investigate communications options as well. We are improving our social media and other Latino communication outlets, so we have now established our own social media presence. The Latino Action Team, they do have their own Instagram, and we want to also continue to develop Google Docs library of Spanish references. So on there we have our presentations, booklets that we see, presentations in Spanish that we've done, and we've also done our own form of social media to get our presentation and outreach to Catholic Latinos. Us ourselves have done one as well. Some of our members have created what we call the Twitter Storm, where it's new, where the point of this is we have announced a new way to reach out to Catholic members of the Senate and the House. And every week, once you sign up for it, every week they send out an email with a list of senators or members of Congress that are Catholic that we want to primarily send out a tweet to. And in that tweet, we want to encourage them to take climate action and support HR 2307, which is our solution. And included in the Twitter Storm is a guide in case for anybody who does not know how to set up their tweet or doesn't know what to include in their tweet. There's a guide included with all of this list as well. We also encourage them to include Laudato Si quotes, as we want to tie in as much as we can Laudato Si, our faith with CCL solution. And there is also a CCL guide to create a Twitter account. And also, we are currently in the works of building the Spanish page for our Twitter Storm. It's not up to Prime yet, so we will, in the future, we will let everyone know when the Spanish version of the Twitter Storm is available. For now, we only have the English version up and running, so people can sign up for that as well. And finally, I do want to mention, as I mentioned before, environmental justice. We are improving a lot our relationships with environmental justice, because along with faith, environmental justice is very important within the Latinx community. We have heard about it in all of our presentations that we've done so far. So of course, we want to, when we do our presentations and reach out, we want to underserved communities that continue to be impacted by climate change. We want to give these communities a voice within CCL. We want to be able to assist them as much as possible. So education, we want to educate a lot of people to let them know that there's a lot of communities being impacted by climate change. A lot of them do not have fair treatment. There's also been systemic and environmental racism throughout this country's history. And we also want to let them know of cleanup of industrial sites. These are all things that we want to continue improving in all of our presentations, and we have begun to develop strategies as to how CCL solutions can benefit all of this and environmental justice as much as we can, and to get in touch with as many communities as possible to support one another and to learn more from each other. So that was, hopefully I wasn't going too fast, and thank you so much. And now I will introduce Sister Ricca, who is here with us today. Sister Ricca Dimalibot. She is the General Counselor with the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word that's based in Houston, Texas. The sisters serve those in need in El Salvador, Guatemala, Ireland, Kenya, Mexico, and the United States. And she is a family medicine physician who runs the Christus Point of Light Clinic, located in a medically undeserved community southeast of Houston. And the congregation has taken a very public stand on climate and sustainability by holding climate synopsia, as well as the Ecumenical Day of Prayer for faith leaders across Houston in 2019. So I will pass it along now to Sister Ricca to discuss more how the Catholic strategies in our outreach to Catholic Latinos ties in with her part of the presentation. Sister Ricca.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Roger and Juan, for your ministry to the church. It is really a privilege to be with all of you today and talk about one of my favorite topics, caring for our common home. Let me go ahead and share with you my screen, and I hope you can see this. So I want to talk first about the Catholic context. The Catholic Church is in an incredibly remarkable position to respond to climate change. We have the Catholic social teachings to back us up in spreading the gospel message, plus we have the logistics. Let's look at the United States statistics in 2020. Almost 68 million Catholics, which comprise 20% of the population, almost 200 dioceses, 17,000 parishes, 35,000 priests, 45,000 religious sisters and brothers. We have thousands more of advocacy groups and ministries like CCL, and thousands of ministry infrastructures like churches, schools, hospitals. And in addition to that, we have millions of acres of land. And incidentally, half of the educational institutions in the world are run by faith groups. And religious groups are also the third largest group of investors in the world. So think about that for a minute. Can you imagine the impact if all people of faith take the challenge of climate change seriously? What if we leverage our number and influence in politics, finance, agriculture, social services, and many more? Unfortunately, we have not capitalized on this potential. If we work together and address all sectors of society to care for our environment, we would reach the critical mass for radical transformation. And that number is not even enormous. According to the social scientists, it only takes 3.5% of the population to reach the tipping point. When 21 to 25% of the population embraces a change, then we will have the critical mass necessary for systemic change. And there's no going back from that. But to care for Mother Earth, we first begin from within. We need to change our hearts before we could change our minds. We read in Laudato Si 2:17 that we need an ecological conversion, whereby the effects of our encounter with Jesus Christ become evident in our relationships with the world around us. It is an essential aspect for a life of virtue. To care for our common home is not optional, it's obligatory. We need a new consciousness regarding our relationship with ourselves, with others, with society, with creation, and with God. There can be no renewal of our relationship with nature without a renewal of humanity itself. Dialogue is required to approach the solution from every possible angle. And this brings us to integral ecology. The Catholic Church has a very ambitious goal to complete the transition to integral ecology by 2030. When we think about solving the environmental problem, we cannot look at it in isolation. We have to work together for the common good. It takes each one of us working together toward the solution. This is the path to integral ecology. It emphasizes that everything is closely related. Integral ecology pulls together an integrated version of living and caring for creation that sees the importance of dialogue between the different sectors of society, like the environment, economic, political, social, cultural, and many more. It seeks a comprehensive framework and innovative solutions that welcome all ideas. An interdependent world obliges us to think in terms of one world with one project. We require a new and universal solidarity. When the different sectors of society sit at one table, our hope is for them to influence better policies, advancement in technology and research in the service of the whole of creation with preferential option for the poor. Now, I want to tell you about an exciting new program from the Vatican called Laudato Si Action Platform. Pope Francis tasked the dicastery for promoting integral human development to begin a 7-year journey through transition to integral ecology and sustainability in the spirit of his landmark encyclical. There are 7 sectors invited, and they are, as you can see in this slide, families, educational institutions, the economic sector, religious orders, parishes and dioceses, hospitals and healthcare centers, organizations, and groups. And again, that's like the CCL. And there are 7 Laudato Si goals that we want to commit to. And these are set by the dicastery. The first is response to the cry of the poor. And this could be in the form of recycling and greater use of clean renewable energy and reducing fossil fuels. The second one is to respond to the cry of the poor. This is about defending human life from conception to death with special attention to vulnerable groups such as indigenous communities, migrants, and children at risk. Ecological economics involves sustainable production, fair trade, divestment from fossil fuels. Fourth, adoption of simple lifestyle. Examples are conserving use of resources and energy, avoiding waste and single-use plastic. Ecological education is about rethinking and redesigning educational curricula to create ecological awareness and action. Earlier, I talked about ecological spirituality. And the last one would be community engagement and participatory action by promoting advocacy and people's campaigns. Supporting the work of the Citizens Climate Lobby, the sponsor of this conference that you are attending right now, is one important step toward advocacy. Now, for us who belong to religious communities, participation will be built on 3 pillars. First, by making a public commitment to the 7-year journey. Second is to transition to integral ecology. And third is journeying together through networking and advocacy for systemic change. I included this slide here because I have a suspicion that this would be a part of what would be encouraged in the other sectors that I mentioned earlier. The dicastery encourages the plans to build upon what you are already doing in ministry. The plan has to be simple and gradual, inspiring and flexible. The soft launch is on May 25th, 10 days from today. It's a day after the 6th anniversary of the launch of Laudato Si, and it's the day after Laudato Si week. The global Catholic climate movement will connect the sectors in the US and will provide digital support. And I'm pretty sure that if you Google it, you'll find a lot of information on how to start and join LSAP. So how do we plan to reach out to our brothers and sisters? First, to change the mind more expeditiously, we first need to change the heart. Begin with contemplation of God and the beauty of creation to discover new insights. Reflect on our attitude toward material things. Some have advocated confessing our sins against creation. Attending or organizing creation care themed liturgy is also one effective way of encouraging our brothers and sisters. We need to create healthy Catholic engagement with politics, avoid causing polarization through highly politicized language, address root causes like racism, poverty, predatory investing, keep well informed about current issues and engage in conversations, connect climate change with physical sickness, poor mental health, social injustice, talk about the poor environmental infrastructure exposed by the pandemic, support groups that advocate for farmers, indigenous groups, and climate refugees, and so much more. Now, education cannot be overemphasized. We need to show facts and avoid heated arguments. Provide concrete, significant actions that are doable and actionable, but not too complicated. Avoid shaming. Listen to the voices of the communities most impacted by the climate change and value what they have to say. Offer support and affirm their experience. Share their story with the rest of the world. Invite people to visit power plants, climate refugees, victims of environmental injustice, and reflect on what you see and take action to be part of the solution. Now, building relationship is so crucial to our work. We need to focus on what unites us and not what divides us. Find common grounds, celebrate positive steps towards sustainability, look for ways to work together instead of competing with each other, share resources, remind everyone of our shared responsibility to care for the earth and each other, and emphasize that working for the good of the earth benefits all of us. Lead by example. We need to walk the talk and show our values, live simply and make lifestyle changes. Ask ourselves about our compulsion to consume. But caring for our common home is a way of life. Ecological conversion is a path toward God. Allow your personal encounter with Christ to bring about a greater sense of personal responsibility for our common home. Now, finally, I want to leave you with these words from Father Thomas Berry, who invites us to ask ourselves these questions in the spirit of Laudato Si. Is my next thought, word, or deed sustainable, life-giving, viable for me and the universe? Is my next thought, word, or deed an expression of intimacy and community with Earth? Does this awakening nurture gratitude and joy in my nature? Is my next thought, word, or deed an expression of my commitment to solidarity with those who suffer from violence, of global disruption and degradation? In this moment, when we can't do everything, let's do what's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ricca. So, Chris, do you have some questions that we could try to answer with the time remaining?
I do indeed have some questions. The first one I have is a very specific question. How can I get copies of A Catholic Response to Global Warming in English and Spanish?
Okay, it is a document that's in, actually, we are going to be providing a document after this to everybody that registered. And it's going to be like a PDF with links in it. And that particular reference is online free, both in English and Spanish. So we'll provide the links to that. And you can also, if you need a hard copy to present to your priest or something, Steve Coleman, who wrote the book, can help get you a hard copy.
Thank you. And Roger, the next question is channeled to yourself. The participant says, any recommendations for a scientist who is not an expert in climate change? I would like to leverage my scientific background to build trust, but not sure how.
Okay, I think certainly this is a scientist, that's his background, correct? Okay,
Yes.
So I think certainly you would want to share that, because that's going to make you very credible and to the audience. But it would have to be other things to connect with the audience. I mean, it's basically, and our schedules and presenters is a really good group to see how to best connect. But for me, it was my personal story, and things that are changing that mean so much to me. The scuba diving, and I love the Arctic. I've been up there a couple of times, and it's just an incredibly beautiful place, and that's changing rapidly before our eyes, essentially. So you have to find things that that will connect. And goodness gracious, there's nothing better than grandchildren. So to connect with your audience. So that's kind of my suggestion.
All right. The next question I have is for Juan. A participant asks, what ecological concerns do you hear most from Latinx communities?
Thank you for that question, Chris. So based on the presentations that we have done, the ecological concerns that we hear the most is the cleaning up of industrial plants and the housing concerns. So there's a lot of communities that they're not in fair housing. So because due to the area where they're at, and in places like Louisiana, they're a lot more vulnerable to when hurricane season comes around. And also besides the housing and the other concern that I've heard about the most is from the economical perspective. So financially, so how can we support a lot of these impacted communities financially? How can they get much more assistance as well? So that's why we really love that CCL solution works as a dividend. This is a great way that when it's passed, this can continue to assist impacted communities to the form of a dividend. You can think of it as a way of perhaps a stimulus check that they can continue receiving this for quite a long time in the long run. So I hope hopefully that helped.
Right, and the next question is also for you, Juan. I am a new CCL member. My community has a very large Latinx population. How can I reach out to recruit more diversity in our CCL chapter?
Oh wow, no. Wow, that's great. And so if you're in CCL already, you can join all of the groups that I've mentioned in the presentation. So the Latino Action Team, the Latinx Catholic Action Team, you can join all of those as well. That's a great first place to get started, because that's where a lot of the Latino members in CCL, they get together and they meet pretty often. So you can get there and reach out to them. And if not, then you can go into CCL community as well, and you can search on there. That's a great place to get started for diversifying, as well as the diversity team. CCL also has a diversity team as well. So you can look for all of those groups in community, and that's a great first way to get started.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Sister Ricca. What would be your recommendation for my first outreach to a Catholic audience in my community?
Wow. Well, first find out if there's already a project by the parish for a creation care team. If there's none, you can talk to the parish priest and suggest the idea. Or before doing that, you could also find other members in the parish who would be interested. And so if you gather enough people who are passionate enough for climate change, then your group could present your solutions or suggestions to the parish priest so that you could become an official advocacy group for the parish. I think that would be the first.
Okay. I have a question that it's not posed to any particular member of the panel. A person asks, how can we improve high school level education? And I'm assuming that we mean Catholic high schools. How can we improve high school education to make students more aware of environmental damage?
If I could just take a quick stab at this, one of the things that my chapter in the Woodlands has done is we have several interns from high schools, and they're a great connection to their eco clubs. And then through the eco clubs, that allows us to give a presentation to the clubs. It's not easy, but it's doable. And they also have the young students really have a great interest in some things like En-ROADS, which is a climate simulator. That's a great way. It's a great learning tool. So we connect with high school students in an educational sense in that way.
Okay. This next question is a structural question like that. Is CCL being incorporated into parish councils?
Quick answer, no. Not that I know of.
Okay. And then another one, does USCCB, I guess that's the Conference of Bishops, do they support carbon pricing, or do they support HR 2307, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act? What is their actual position?
I'll try taking that. They so far, okay, so this bill has been reintroduced. The previous bill, they had several bishops that came out voicing support. It's not something, it's a difference between supporting and endorsing. So we have individual, and matter of fact, there'd be articles about them within National Catholic Reporter and things like that. But as far as a kind of a unifying statement coming from the USCCB, no, we don't have that for HR 2307. That's where we're hoping someday to get that, but we don't have that.
Looks like we're about out of time here, so we're going to have to wrap up so we can all get back to see Bishop McElroy's message. So I want to thank the presenters today. Thank you all so much for coming. And we look forward to seeing you at their next presentation. And the link to that is in the chat. Thank you all so much.